We must remember that the stars are enormous. They're just so far away. This is a phrase I've been thinking about a lot lately, and especially as to how it pertains to reaching goals. The stars are enormous. They're just so far away. Goals can be enormous, but when they're so far away, they look small and we are incredulous. But nothing gets us closer to those stars. Nothing gets us closer to our goals than small actions that we can take now. And that's something I'm trying to focus on a lot right now, is that I set, around my birthday every year, I set goals. I break goals down into compartments, different sectors of life: writing, education, the YouTube stuff, monetary, family goals, all of these things. And at the beginning of the year, you set the goal 150 poems. That doesn't mean much because you haven't written any yet for the year. That goal is so far away. But say you get 8 months into a 12-month year and you've written, to date, 0 poems. You're so much closer to that goal being due, and it is so big. Now, you have to write, what would that be, 40-ish poems a month? 4, 8, 12, 16, 40-ish poems a month. That star is very big and very close. But if you start today, collecting the resources for a rocket, you write 1 poem today, 1 poem tomorrow. Well, if you've got the whole year, 150 poems, that's a poem every other day. Not a poem and a quarter every day as it would be if you put off. So this is something I have to get better at as I am looking at all the goals that I did not accomplish from the goals that I set last year. Goals that are, in hindsight, having failed at them, very discouraging, very off-putting. But it need not be so. I did not write all the poems that I had planned to write in this past calendar year. But that does not mean that the flight is aborted. It does not mean that rocket blew up. It means I start over. And maybe 150 poems is a stupid goal. Is it too big of a star? Is a poem every other day a pace which would ruin the quality of the poems having been written? I don't know. That's something I have to reassess. But I think that it is still important to set goals. I think it's one of the things that keeps me going. It's one of the things that helps me reconceptualize the self. And I think reconceptualization of the self is not important, necessary. I think it's necessary. And having end dates for things. And if you don't reach that, it doesn't mean you... So, for example, another one of my goals is to finish said novel, whatever said novel is. I guess at this point it's an unsaid novel. At the end of the year, when I haven't finished it, I don't throw it out. It becomes a different goal for the next year. That novel should be on a first draft 60,000 words, and I wrote 30 of them. Well, then that goal gets reassessed as a 30,000 words towards unsaid novel. How do you set goals? I'm interested. Do other people have quicker cycles? I used to set them 4 times a year. For the summer, for the new year, and then in between one was fall for my birthday, and then just sort of tying up loose ends in what would be the spring. It was an inefficient way, I think, to do goals, but it's probably an efficient way to reacquaint yourself with your own goals. A quarterly check-in. One other thing that I've got to get better at is I've got to get better at revisiting my goals whilst I am working on them. Because it's easy to forget. It's easy to misconstrue your goals and end up in a wasteland. Not knowing them even. Not knowing your own goals. One of the things that I do on my birthday, after I break my life down into different sections, is I decide a number of the minimum goal requirement for each section. This year it was 50. 50 goals in every section of life that I broke life down into. That's a lot to keep in the back of your mind. But as long as you're constantly working on something, I think you can, there's no day that must be considered a waste. There's one thing I'm trying to, I crash a lot, and I have wasted days. Days where I fall into malaise. Days where perhaps the tendrils of depression wrap themselves around me, and I fail utterly in execution. If I just cut those days out, and I get 1% better at one thing on that day, it becomes a non-wasted day. At which point, the next time I feel one of those days, I get 2% better at something. This is something I learned from, what was it? Muscle Mag, when I was in high school. It was a publication for bodybuilders. Something I think that is called the Kaizen principle, K-A-I-Z-E-N. From what I understand, this idea comes to us from Japan. It is the idea of getting 1% better every day. And if you can just get 1%, 1% is nothing. What happens is once you get into the 30% better than from where you started, it becomes a struggle. But if you can pick 5 areas of life and get 1% better in them every day, you end up in a much better place than you started. And I think that's something, that is a principle by which I lived in high school. And in high school, I was doing impressive numbers in the weight room. I used it, like I say, I got it from Muscle Mag, and I applied it towards not necessarily bodybuilding, but strength building. Like by the time high school was out, I think I was bench pressing 320 pounds. At 5'7", that is no ordinary feat. And I think that is a principle to which I must return. The Kaizen principle, getting 1% better every day. If I can do that, then the goals that I set next year for the calendar year will look much different. Much different. So yeah, I'm interested in how you set your goals. I'd be interested to hear from you about that. Do you have any goals on which you are currently working? The idea and rigmarole around goal setting is something that interests me a lot, and it would mean a lot to me if you could share those things with me. Hope to see you next time.